Welcome to Greek for a Week. We are looking at another couple of verses for our study in the book of Philippians, specifically verses 27 and 28 of chapter 2. And we are in the final paragraph of chapter 2. So next week we will look at verses 29 and 30. And then, of course, we'll diagram this particular passage the week after that. So these two verses, 27 and 28, that we'll be looking at, they continue the thought process of Epaphroditus as an example that Paul is bringing before the Philippians, very much like he did in the preceding paragraph when he discussed Timothy. So let's continue with these verses here and Epaphroditus as an example. Indeed, he was sick to near death, but God had mercy on him, and not only him, but also me, so that I would not have sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore, I have sent him eagerly, so that you may rejoice when you see him again, and I may be less anxious. So in these couple of verses, again, we see some more connecting conjunctions and particles that help us, again, continue to package this paragraph together. So you have a kai and you have a gar to begin verse 27. The gar, if you will, further explains verses 25 and 26, along with your ascensive force of kai, which is why I translated it indeed. So this kind of brings these couple of verses together. It's how Paul connects them. And then you have the es thenason, third person singular, aorist active indicative of as theneo. So if I go ahead and write as theneo, okay, as theneo, just kind of walk through a few things. The alpha in the lexical form, because it's an aorist indicative verb, changes to an eta. That's the variation of the augment. And then your epsilon here gets lengthened to an eta because of your ending here, your sigma epsilon nu ending. As that gets attached onto the verb, that epsilon then changes to an eta or lengthens. Then you have ala. Ala, again, is a contrasting conjunction. Here Paul is contrasting the near-death experience to life, where God showed mercy on him here in the second portion of the verse. Then you have your le esen. Okay, that is a third person singular, aorist active indicative of leeo, I, or in this case, God, he had mercy. Probably a result clause when we look at this hina. Okay, probably a result. So that I would not have sorrow upon sorrow. So the result is that I would not have sorrow there. And then the epi in between the two lupanes. So the epi here, the conjunction, probably serving as, I guess you could translate it maybe to or in addition to. So maybe Paul could be saying here, and not only on him, but also me, so that I would not have sorrow in addition to sorrow or more sorrow. So that's a way that maybe we can handle that. Then the un here in verse 28, you have an un which again, I don't think it's resumptive, but rather I think it's a result of what was discussed in 25 and 26. So therefore, what Paul eagerly sends him, and that's the empempsa. Okay, that's your aorist form of pempo, first person singular, aorist active indicative. Your hina clause here, rather than result, is probably a purpose here, a purpose moving forward. In other words, why did I send him, or for what purpose? So that you may rejoice, and I also may be less anxious, Paul says. Then the idantes is a participle, probably a temporal participle, which is why I translated this portion right here, when you see him again. Aorist active participle, masculine nominative plural of horao. So this would be the lexical form here. All right, horao, probably temporal. So that's verses 27 and 28. Again, we're going to continue to move along here, and we'll conclude this paragraph with verses 29 and 30 next week. Have a great week.